Hello everyone, welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We are holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We'll be learning today Mir Hashem Daf Samach Zayin Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Rosh Hashanah, and we pick up today on the top of Samach Zayin Amud Aleph in the words of the Ramah. We're in Siman Tov Kuf Tzadik Aleph Siv Zayin. Says the Ramah, Haga Va'imrim Aleinu. When we daven Mussaf on Rosh Hashanah, when we come to Malchiyos, we say Aleinu. Aleinu is such a beautiful tefillah. I often use Aleinu as an example when we learn Parshas Ekev, and Rashi says, the pasuk says Ekev, Asher Tishma'un Mekail. Since if you'll listen to the words of the Rabbeinu Shalom and you listen to the Torah, then Klal Yisrael will receive bracha. Rashi says over there Ekev. Rashi says it's a reference to the mitzvahs Sha'adam Dash Ba'akevav, the mitzvahs that people treat in a cavalier fashion, and so to speak, it's as if they step on them. These are mitzvahs that to some people are not really considered such chashuv mitzvahs, so to speak. They treat them very cavalierly. I often like to speak of Aleinu as being an example of a mitzvah Sha'adam Dash Ba'akevav. Aleinu comes all the way at the end of davening. Some people, if not physically, mentally, they already have one foot out the door and they're mumbling Aleinu on the way out. Aleinu is such a beautiful tefillah, and you see that it holds a position of such great honor on Rosh Hashanah. It's part of Malchiyos, and we know that it's a very somber time, a very solemn time in Shul when the Shler Tzibur gets up to Aleinu and we go down on our knees by Kairim. It's a highlight of the tefillah of the chazaras hashatz in Mussaf. Beautiful, beautiful tefillah aleinu. It really behooves people on a daily basis, 3 times a day. You have the opportunity to say aleinu. Take out the art scroll siddur and pay a little attention to the words of aleinu and see what it is that we're saying. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakoil. It is upon us to praise the master of all. Lases gedula liyotzer bereshis. Shaloi asanu kigaye ha'aratzos. Because the Rabbeinu Shalom did not make us like all of the other nations of the earth. The Rabbeinu Shalom elevated us. He gave us a Torah HaKadosha. He elevated our lives. He gave us a purpose. He gave us a structure. He made us a mamleches kaihanim v'goy kadosh. So aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakoil. We owe such a debt of gratitude to the Rabbeinu Shalom, and certainly Aleinu is a tefillah that we should give a lot of recognition, we should pay a lot of attention to. So over here again, the Ramah says, V'oimrim Aleinu, in the chazaras hashatz of Mussaf, we say Aleinu, Umaloich. I believe the Ramah is referring over here to the tefillah that comes right before the bracha of Malchiyos. Maloich al kala olam kuloi bichvaydecha, v'hinasei al kala aretz bikarecha, v'hoifa b'hadar ga'oinuzecha, al kol yoshvei sevel artzecha. This is not, this is in Malchiyos. This is the end of this paragraph, is Melech al kala aretz b'kadosh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron. So this is a beautiful tefillah, praying to the Rabbeinu Shalom and asking the Rabbeinu Shalom that he really should establish his malucha over the world. That the Rabbeinu Shalom's malucha, his rulership on the world, should be acknowledged by all. So the Ramah said, we say Aleinu, we say Melaich, V'Shlei HaTzibur Moisef Oichila, and the Shlei HaTzibur also adds the tefillah of Oichila, Oichila Lakei Lachale Panav. That's a tefillah that the Shlei HaTzibur is asking the Rabbeinu Shalom, Eshala mimenu manei lashain. The Shlei HaTzibur asks the Rabbeinu Shalom that the Rabbeinu Shalom should be with him in his speech, and the Shlei HaTzibur should be able to enunciate the tefillahs clearly and beautifully and move the tzibur. Ushar piyutim, and the Shlei HaTzibur also adds other piyutim into the chazaras hashatz. Each place according to their minig. There's no Mishnah Berurah on this Ramah. Sif Ches. This is a very important sif. We hope that it won't be again this Rosh Hashanah, But this past Rosh Hashanah, this was a very, very, very critical sif in Shulchan Aruch. Says the Mechaber, Lo yispalel b'yachid tfilas Mussaf b'Rosh Hashanah ad achar shalosh shois hayoim. Somebody who finds himself davening b'yechidus on Rosh Hashanah should not daven Mussaf until after 3 hours into the day. And I have to tell you, as Chatay ani mazkir hayoim, that this past Rosh Hashanah, on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, I forgot this halacha. I got up to daven v'sikin. I was in quarantine. I knew I would have to daven b'yechidus, so I got up to daven daven v'sikin. And when I got up to daven v'sikin, my mind was not on the zmanim so much. I realized I'm davening v'sikin. I started the davening and I davened straight. And I forgot the halacha that you're not supposed to daven Mussaf b'yechidus before shalish shois hayoim. You're not supposed to daven Mussaf b'yechidus before 3 hours into the day. Lo yispal b'yachid tfilas Mussaf Rosh Hashanah ad achar shalish shois hayoim. Why is this? Says the Chavetz Chaim is cutting Yud Gimel. Lo yispal. First, the Chavetz Chaim tells us, you might be wondering, why do we need this halacha? What does the Mechaber mean that a yachid somebody shouldn't daven b'yechidus until the 3rd hour of the day? You shouldn't daven b'yechidus at all. You never should daven b'yechidus. So why are you telling me that you shouldn't daven b'yechidus till after 3 hours into the day? Explains the Chavetz Chaim, Yitzuyar din zeh, this halacha becomes negeya b'yachid shedar b'yishuv, when it comes to a yachid, an individual who lives in a village. Somebody lives in a yishuv, he lives in a village far out, and there is no minyan nearby, so he doesn't have a minyan to go to. The Berurah, because if we're speaking about somebody who lives in the city, then it's not appropriate for the Mechaber to say that you shouldn't daven b'yechidus until 3 hours into the day. You shouldn't daven b'yechidus at all if you're in a city. If you're in a city and you have a minyan available, you're mechuyev to go daven with the minyan. So Chavetz Chaim says it must be, we're talking about somebody who doesn't have the opportunity to daven with a minyan. He lives out in the village and there is no minyan. So he has to daven b'yechidus. Alright, so daven b'yechidus 3 hours into the day. I guess the Chavetz Chaim didn't envision quarantine. Okay. He's cutting your dalet, b'yachid ad achar shalosh shois. B'yechidus, the person shouldn't daven Mussaf until 3 hours into the day. Why is this? Explains the Chavetz Chaim, the b'shalosh shois rishonos, during the first 3 hours of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu don es olamai. That's when the Rebbeinu Shalom sits in judgment on the inhabitants of the world. And if this person is going to go daven Mussaf, v'shema ya'aynu b'dinoi b'yichud u'miyitzdak. When somebody gets up to daven Mussaf on Rosh Hashanah, and he davens malchiyos, zichronos, and shofros, so he's being mispal, especially by zichronos. He's being mispal. He's asking that the Rebbeinu Shalom should remember him and remember Klal Yisrael l'toiv. That may bring about his judgment up in Shemayim. Somebody in Shemayim, they're going to look and they're going to say, okay, this person is davening zichronos, it's time to judge him. And like the Chavetz Chaim says here, V'shema ya'aynu b'dina b'yichud. Maybe now they'll look into his judgment while he's an individual. Umi yitzdak. Who's going to be found a tzaddik in din? Who's going to be found righteous in din when he's standing din alone? Aval kishu mispal b'tzibur. But when you daven together with the tzibur, then we have a pasuk in Iyuv that says, Hein Kel Kabir, the Rebbeinu Shalom is almighty, lo yimas. He does not despise the tefillos of the rabbim. That's the way the Gemara in Brachas and Dav Ches darshans this pasuk. The Gemara darshans the pasuk Hein Kel Kabir lo yimas. The Rebbeinu Shalom is never moyis in the tefillah of the rabbim. Now, what the Chavetz Chaim is saying over here is, when a person davens b'yechidus, then they look at him as a yachid. In Shemayim, they treat him as a yachid. When somebody davens b'tzibur, then he's part of the tzibur. Then he'll be judged together with the tzibur. When you're judged together with the tzibur, okay, so you know what? Your chatam could be overlooked. you're intermingled together with the tzibur, and they could find you a tzaddik and din together with the rest of the tzibur. But as a yachid, it's very hard to be found a tzaddik and din as a yachid. Now, if you daven Mussaf in the first 3 hours of the day, when the Rebbeinu Shalom is sitting in judgment, and you're a yachid, you could find yourself in trouble. But if you daven Mussaf later in the day, even if you're davening b'yechidus, later in the day, you'll be davening Mussaf the same time as the tzibur. The tzibur doesn't daven Mussaf, generally speaking, during the first 3 hours of the day. The tzibur davens Mussaf later. So if you daven Mussaf at 11 o'clock, if you daven Mussaf at 12 o'clock, there's some tzibur somewhere that's also davening Mussaf at that time, and your tefillah will go up together with them. But if you daven Mussaf at 8 o'clock in the morning, who's davening Mussaf at 8 o'clock in the morning? Now your tefillah goes up as a yachid, and now you could be in trouble. Continues the Chavetz Chaim. Umad denokat Rosh Hashanah, and this that the Mechaber feels it necessary to express this din on Rosh Hashanah. After b'chol yom HaKadosh Baruch Hu dan olamai b'shalosh shayis v'shaynos. This Gemara, this Chazal, that the Rebbeinu Shalom sits in judgment during the first 3 hours of the day, is not specifically talking about Rosh Hashanah. That's talking about every day. So why doesn't the Mechaber say every day? You shouldn't daven b'yechidus before 3 hours of the day, because you'll be treated as a yachid. So the Chavetz Chaim explains, the judgment that takes place on a daily basis is not the same as the judgment that takes place on Rosh Hashanah. The judgment that takes place on a daily basis, that's for right now, that's for today. On Rosh Hashanah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu dan l'chal Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbeinu Shalom is passing judgment on you for an entire year. V'lepa'amim l'shanim rabos. And the Chavetz Chaim says sometimes the Rebbeinu Shalom passes judgment on you on Rosh Hashanah, not only for that year, but for many years. I'm not 100% sure what the Chavetz Chaim is referring to over here. It could be that what it means is sometimes the Rebbeinu Shalom passes judgment on somebody for this year, but something is going to happen to him this year that's going to affect him for many, many, many years to come. And that could be both l'toiv or l'mutav. It could be in a good way, or chas v'chalila, it could be not in a good way. Somebody could find riches overnight, and it could be that those riches will last him a lot of years. Even if next year on Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbeinu Shalom is geyser on him that he should lose his wealth, the fact that he was wealthy at one time is something that will have an effect on him possibly for the rest of his life. Or it could be chas v'chalila l'ra. Somebody gets into a car accident, he breaks his leg, he could be limping for the rest of his life. So that judgment was now for this year, but it has long-lasting effects. So the judgment that the Rebbeinu Shalom passes on Rosh Hashanah is a much stricter type of judgment than the judgment that the Rebbeinu Shalom judges on a daily basis. Furthermore, says the Chavetz Chaim, V'davka tfilos Mussaf, and really this is only negayah to tfilos Mussaf, shezmanu kol hayoim. We know the halacha is you're allowed to daven Mussaf all day, and therefore regilam ha'olam la'acharei achar shalosh shos. That's why b'tzibur they generally speaking daven Mussaf later than 3 hours into the day. So if you daven Mussaf before 3 hours into the day, you're a yachid because nobody else is davening Mussaf. Aval tefillah shachris, but when it comes to shachris, regilin olam lehispal b'bayker b'say shalosh shos rishonos. Most people, most siburim, daven shachris before 3 hours into the day. Befrat, they want to be able to say Kriya Shema b'zmanoi, and Zman Kriya Shema is shalosh shos. So usually shachris is earlier than shalosh shos. Valkein, and therefore, keshehu mispal ba'isei azman, if you daven b'yechidus shachris within the first 3 hours of the day, you'll be davening together with the tzibur. Mussaf you will not, because Mussaf the tzibur davens later. But shachris you could daven during the first 3 hours of the day, because you'll still be davening with the tzibur. So v'alkein kishu mispal ba'isei azman, if you daven shachris within the first 3 hours of the day, tekubal tfilasai b'sayich tfilas hatzibur, your tefillah will go up together with the tfilas of the tzibur. Uv'mekarmei shenagin lehispal shachris b'hashkama b'sayich shah rishayna oishniya, if you know that you live in a locale where they daven shachris v'sikin, or they daven Shachris Bahashkama, an early minyan, they daven at 7 o'clock. So if you know that they're going to finish Shachris already an hour into the day, or 2 hours into the day, so then indeed, says the Chavetz Chaim, Yitzamtzem Azl Hispal Tfilosai, Gamkein B'Sai Chaisai Azman. So then you should try that you should daven your Shachris at the time that your tzibur is davening their Shachris. If you know that in your locale they daven Shachris, they don't wait until 3 hours into the day. They're finished Shachris already 2 hours into the day. So make sure you finish your Shachris 2 hours into the day. Whenever these kind of halachas come up, I always like to say over, I think I've said it on this share in the past, my, excuse me, my 6th grade, I believe it was my 6th grade Rebbe. I think it was my 6th grade Rebbe. Maybe 5th, no, either 5th or 6th. No, now I'm thinking it was my 5th grade Rebbe. He used to teach us the difference between davening b'tzibur and davening b'yechidus. He used to say that when you daven b'yechidus, it's as if your mother sent you out to the fruit store and asked you to buy an apple for your father for supper. So you went to the fruit store and you took the first apple that you saw and you bring home one solitary apple to your mother. And your mother looks at the apple and it's soft and it's bruised and she says, "This is the apple that you brought me for your father for supper?" And she gets very upset with you. That's davening b'yechidus. Now imagine your mother says, "Do me a favor. I need an apple for your father for supper tonight. We also need some apples for Shabbos, and I might want to make an apple pie. Go out and buy a dozen apples." So you go to the fruit store and you take a dozen apples. And in the dozen apples, you have 2 apples that aren't so great. So you bring them home. Your mother looks through the apples. She sees 2 apples that are a little bruised. She doesn't even say anything. She has 10 beautiful apples. The 2 apples that are not so good, they don't concern her so much. That's tefillah b'tzibur. When you daven tefillah b'tzibur, if your tefillah wasn't such a wonderful tzibur, or was such a wonderful tefillah, but your tefillah goes up together with the tefillahs of the rest of the tzibur. But when you daven b'yechidus, your tefillah is going up alone. So if your tefillah is a shvacha tefillah, it comes up l'fnei kisei hakavod. It comes to the kisei hakavod as a shvacha tzibur. It's a bruised apple, and it sticks out as a bruised apple. That's the difference between davening b'yechidus and davening b'tzibur. Okay. Ois Katan Tes Vav Hayoim. The Mechaber said that we should not daven Mussaf b'yechidus until after 3 hours into the day. And now another very pertinent halacha. V'chein, similarly, Yizaher Hayachid. A Yachid, an individual who finds himself davening alone, Shalo Yiska Tekios Mitzvah Al Achar Shalosh Shais Al Hayoim. He should not blow shofar until 3 hours into the day. Again, for the same reason. Mishum de Yifkedu Bedinoi. Because when he blows shofar, that's when his din is going to come up in Shamayim. The Mishnah Berurah, we had this concept already previously in Siman Tavkuf Peiches. Now we go to Siman Tavkuf Tzadik Beis, Tfilos Mussaf B'Kal Ram, the chazaras hashatz of Mussaf, the seder tekios, and the order of the shofar blowing during the chazaras hashatz, ubai dalit seifim, and here we have 4 seifim. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Machazir shliach tzibor hatfila, the shliach tzibor, the chazan says chazaras hashatz, v'toikin al seder habrachos, and we blow shofar together with the order of the brachos, malchios, echrainos, and shofros. Says the Mechaber Lamalchios, after Malchios Tashrat Pam Achas. This was the minig of the Mechaber, that after Malchios they blew Tekiya Shvarim Trua Tekiya once. Ul Zechrainos, and then after Zechrainos Tashat, they blew Tekiya Shvarim Tekiya once. Ul Shofaros, and finally after Shofaros Tarat, they blew Tekiya Trua Tekiya. So the Mechaber's minig was not like our minig. We're going to see later on that our minig is the minig of the shla, but that was not the Mechaber's minig. After Malchios, they blew Tekiya Shvarim Trua Tekiya. After Zechrainos, Tekiya Shvarim Tekiya. After Shofaros, Tekiya Trua Tekiya. Continues the Mechaber. V'achshav, and nowadays, I guess that wasn't the Mechaber's minig. I guess what he says now is the Mechaber's minig. V'achshav, and nowadays, says the Mechaber, Noihagim, the minig is, L'skaya l'malchiyos tashrat shalish pa'amim, that after malchiyos they would blow tekios shvarim true tekiah 3 times. Ula zechraynos, and after zechraynos tekios shvarim tekiah shalish pa'amim. Ula shayfaros, and after shayfaros tekiah teruah tekiah shalish pa'amim. So here we have 2 minhagim. The first minig, after malchiyos tekiah shvarim true tekiah, after zechraynos tekiah shvarim tekiah, after zechraynos tekiah, after shayfaros tekiah true tekiah. The second minig, after malchiyos tekiah shvarim true tekiah 3 times. After zechronis tekiah shvarim tekiah 3 times, after shayfaris tekiah true tekiah 3 times. Okay, those are the 2 minhagim we have so far. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Aleph. Machazir shliach tzibur atfila. The Chazan says over the Shemoneh Esrei chazaras hashatz. Yesh mekaimos, says the Mechaber, there are those locales shenayagin where they have the minig liskayat, to blow shofar kishemispalulin balachash, to blow shofar during the shtil of Shemoneh Esrei. This is a minig that we find nowadays a lot in places that daven nusach Sfard, that they blow tekios during the shtil of Shemoneh Esrei. When I lived in Edison and I was the Baal Tekeah in the shtibel over there, I did this. I blew during the shtil of Shemoneh Esrei. Aval, says the Mishnah Berurah, Aval ein linakein lechatchila. But lechatchila we should not do this. Shaloi leval bo hamispalalim. Because it causes confusion in the shtil of Shemoneh Esrei. Either somebody is already up to the shofar blowing, and now he stops and he's waiting, so he's being mafsik in the Shemoneh Esrei, he's not doing anything. Or maybe he's behind, and now he's in the middle of let's say zechronos, and he's trying to daven, but now he has to stop to hear shofar. So it makes a confusion out of the shtil of Shemoneh Esrei. And therefore the Mishnah Berurah says, l'chatchila we should not do this. Happens to be, it turns out that this is a minig. It's a very chashuv a minig. It's the minig of the Ari. It's the minig of the Ari. They call it the minig of the Chassidim Anshe Maisa in Eretz Yisrael. So it's definitely a chashuv a minig. And the Mefarshim say over here that when the Mishnah Berurah says Aval ein linikein l'chatchila, he really means Aval ein linikein l'chatchila in a place where they don't have an established minig. But if that is the established minig, then you should keep that minig. Now, where you don't do it, because like the Mishnah Berurah says, so now you're short 30 kilos. If you don't blow during the shtil of Shemoneh Esrei, you're missing 30 kilos. Where do you make up those 30 kilos? You make them up after davening. Okay. I've cut in bays, the toikin, you blow shofar al seder abrachas, you blow shofar over malchiyos zechronos and shofaros. Says the Chavetz Chaim, uvechol tekios shel shloisha starim halalu, by all of the shofar blowing, by these 3 sets, the shofar blowing that you're doing in the middle of the chazaras hashatz, tzrichin ha'toikeah v'hashomim la'amod b'shas tekios. The Baal Tekeah and those that are listening to the shofar all have to stand. And therefore in the Quran tekios demu'umid, that's why these are called the tekios demu'umid, because you're supposed to stand. Now why exactly are you supposed to stand? So we had earlier, we had in the beginning of Hilchos Shofar, where was it? Siman Tavkuf Pei Hey in Sif Aleph, Anun Vav Amud Beis, we had Sarach Liskaya Umid. You have to blow shofar standing. And the Mishnah Berurah said over here, he says, really, we're not matriach the tzibur to stand, but that's only by the original, by the first tekios before Mussaf. He says over here also that by the tekios that are blown during chazaras hashatz, you do have to stand. Now, why do you have to stand? So the Mishnah Berurah Nun Vav Amud Beis in Siman Tavkuf Pehei Ois Cotton Bays, he brings down the ksiv because it says in the pasuk Yom Teruah Yeh Lochem, and we have an asmachta the alfinon mi lochem de gabe oimer. We compare the word lochem Yom Teruah Yeh Lochem to the word lochem that it says by the carbon oimer. Over there it says me hachel chermesh bakama, when you begin to unleash the sickle on the kama, on the standing grain. So since it says kama, the Chazal say al tikre bakama ela bikaima, that you should be standing. And we learn out Yom Teruah Yeh Lochem, and over there by the Omer it also says Lochem, and therefore just like that should be standing, this also should be standing. Now what's interesting is, if you're supposed to hear the tekios while you're standing, so how come that's only by what we call the tekios limud, by chazaras hashatz, by the shofar blowing that we blow on malchiyos, zecharinos, and shofars? Why doesn't it also apply to what we call the tekios miyushiv, to the tekios that we hear earlier on? Bifrat, we had in the previous year that we don't have to be so makpid by the tekios miyushiv, because we were already mekayim the mitzvah of shofar by hearing the tekios miyushiv. That makes it sound like the ikr tekios are the tekios miyushiv, not the tekios miyushiv. So if the ikr tekios are the tekios miyushiv, we should stand by the tekios miyushiv, and maybe we should sit by the tekios miyushiv. So the Mefarshim tumul about this over here, and they want to say, it sounds like, that really the ikr tekios are the tekios that we blow by malchiyos, zecharinos, and shofars. But we want to blow shofar before Mussaf, kedei la'arbev es hasatan. We want to mess up the satan before we daven Mussaf. So therefore we have to blow shofar before Mussaf. Once we blow shofar before Mussaf, zrizin magdimin b'mitzvahs, we're going to make sure to be yotze the mitzvah when we blow before. But still, there's a very big inyan to blow al seder habrachas. So the ikr tekios are really the ones that we blow al seder habrachas, al malchiyos, zecharinos, and shofars, and therefore those are the tekios limud that we have to stand by. But we do blow before Mussaf, kedei la'arbev es hasatan, before Mussaf, but those are not really the ikr. So those, technically speaking, we could sit, but we are going to be yotze the mitzvah then once we hear the first 30 kolos. Okay. Even if you sit by these tekios limud of Mussaf, you still are yotze. Okay, Ois Cotton Gimel. We didn't do Ois Cotton Gimel yet. Let's go to the Ramah. Says the Ramah, 3 lines into Siman Tavkuf Tzadik Beis. Hago. V'yesh omrim, there are those that say, shetoikim tashrat lamalchiyos pamachas, another meaning, that you blow tekios shvarm trua tekiah after malchiyos once, v'chein l'zecharinos, and then you blow tekios shvarm trua tekiah once after zecharinos, v'chein l'shofaros, and then you blow tekios shvarm trua tekiah again after shofaros. So here we have a third meaning brought down by the Ramah, that al seder habrachas, you only blow tekios shvarm trua tekiah. You blow one set of tekios shvarm trua tekiah after malchiyos, zecharinos, and shofars. And the Chavetz Chaim explains the source of this. Ois Cotton Gimel. Tashrat lamalchiyos pamachas. Hine. Keivan shetiktu chazal lotzeis midei kol hasveikos. Since we learned previously, earlier on in Hilchos Shofros, that the reason we blow tekios shvarm trua tekiah, tekios shvarm tekiah, and tekiah trua tekiah is because we want to be yotze all the possibilities of what a trua might be. So we want to be lotzeis midei kol hasveikos. We want to be sure to be yotze the mitzvah of shofar according to all of the different possibilities. Sheyesh lehistapek batrua, all of the possibilities of what a trua is. Kamay shekasav b'siman tavkuf tzadik siv beis. So therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, hayamei aroi, it would be proper gam kan, that so too over here by chazaras hashatz liskaya tashrat tashat tarat, that we should blow tekios shvarm trua tekiah, tekios shvarm tekiah, and tekiah trua tekiah, limalchiyos, for malchiyos, v'chein l'zecharinos, v'chein l'shofros, kedei lotzeis kol safek, in order to be yotze every possibility, which indeed is what we do. Ella, however, lefi she'ein matrichen al hatzibur, The Chavetz Chaim says we can't place such a heavy tercha on the tzibur to make davening so long. Therefore, ein noyagin l'skaya el tashrat l'chol echad. So therefore, came about the minig that the Ramah brings down here to only blow one tashrat after Malchios, one tashrat after Zechraynos, and one tashrat after Shofrais. Shaharei, continues the Chavetz Chaim, Shaharei b'derech zeh hu oiseh kol hasveika shel trua. Because in reality, by blowing tashrat, you are blowing every possibility of a trua. You're blowing a shvarim, so if shvarim alone is a trua, you got a shvarim. You're blowing a trua, so if trua alone is a trua, you have a trua, and you're blowing a shvarim trua. So by blowing tekiah shvarim trua tekiah, in reality, you are blowing every possibility of what a trua could be. Ve'en kan chazaras, and the only problem is shema trua einoi ela trua levad or shvarim levad. The flaw in blowing only tekiah shvarim trua tekiah is something that we mentioned already earlier. Earlier on, the Chavetz Chaim asked, so wait a second, why do we have to blow tekiah shvarim trua tekiah, tekiah shvarim tekiah, tekiah trua tekiah? Why can't we just be yotzei chaladeis by blowing tekiah shvarim trua tekiah? And the Chavetz Chaim explained earlier the reason for that. Because let's say a real trua is only a shvarim. So you're going to blow a tekiah, then you're going to blow a shvarim, but then you're blowing a trua. And if the trua is not a real trua, so then this trua is a koil, it's a foreign koil. It's a koil that doesn't belong here. And then it's a hefsek between the shvarim, which is the real trua, and the second tekiah. And that's why, lichatchila at least, we don't want to be yotzei that way. So ve'en kan chazaras, the only problem in trying to be yotzei koladeis by blowing a tekiah shvarim trua tekiah is shema trua ein ela trua levad or shvarim levad v'nimtzehu mafsik ben trua l'pshuta l'shalafaneh or yishalach hareh. Right? That's the technical problem. For that, says the Chavetz Chaim, according to this minig brought down by the Ramah, ein anu chayshishin lazeh. We're not going to be chayshish for that problem. Kevin shekvar yotzanu yedei chaviseinu min HaTorah b'tekiyos miyoshev. Because again, we already heard 30 kolos before Mussaf. So the chiyuv daraisa, we were already yotzei before Mussaf. Now we're only dealing with the extra kolos that we're blowing to be mekayim the derabanan. And to be mekayim blowing shofar ala seder. So for that, kedei not to be matriach on the tzibur, we're willing to be yotzei with just tekiah shvarim trua tekiah. Sheba tekiah seheim yotzan mikol hasveikis k'mon shekasavti b'simtav kutzan. Okay. Now the Ramah said, "V'chein haminig b'medina yiselu." The Ramah said that this minig of blowing only tashrat after each one of Malchis, Zechraynos, and Shofrais, the Ramah said that's the minig in his regions. Ois katan dal v'chein haminig b'medina yiselu, u'b'shla kasav, and the Shla writes, haderech hamuvchar, that really the best way to do this is l'skaya tashrat tashat tarat lamalchios v'chein l'Zechraynos v'chein l'Shofrais. The proper thing, the best thing to do is to do what we do, is to blow tashrat, tashat, and tarat after each one of malchios, Zechraynos, and Shofrais. V'achar anim zmiros, and then at the end of davening, oid tashrat, tashat, tarat, you should blow another 30 kolos, kedei lahashlam ad mea kolos, so that you have 100 kolos. When we call makom shenayagin kiminagenu ein l'shanos, Chavetz Chaim says in a place that has this minig, which apparently the Chavetz Chaim's minig was the one seder of tashrat, a tashrat after Malchios, a tashrat after Zechraynos, and a tashrat after Shofrais. If you have that minig, ein l'shanos. Okay. Says the Ramah Vayter, 3 lines from the bottom. V'nagu loimer kol pam achar shetaku. The minig is after each set of shofar blowing, we say the little tefillah of Hayom Haras Olam and the tefillah of Areshes Sifasenu. Va'afilu b'Shabbos she'ein toikin, and even on Shabbos when you don't blow shofar, Omrim Hayom Haras Olam, we still say the tefillah of Hayom Haras Olam. Avaloi Areshes, but we do not say Areshes Sifasenu. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting hey Hayom Haras Olam. Why do we say this tefillah of Hayom Haras Olam on Rosh Hashanah? To betishrei nivra ha'olam because the world was created in Tishrei on Rosh Hashanah. Va'afil l'may the kaimalon, even according to the shita that we paskin like, Kamanda Amar b'Nisan nivra ha'olam, that the world was created in Nisan, al kalpanim b'Tishrei ala b'machshava lihibarais. Still, the Rabban Shalom made the decision to create the world in Tishrei, v'lo nivra ad Nisan. It was not fully created until Nisan. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Mi'ez Hashem, we'll pick up with Sif Beis tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. Schus of limud HaTorah should stand against Klal Yisrael in good stead. The Rabban Shalom should send Yeshuas and Refuas and Parnasa to all those in need, and we should be zeichet to see the Biaska El Tzedek B'meher V'Yameinu. Amen. Be well.